Yes, well listened to this morning. Yes, 100%. Tables up the back there, did you have word?
We had awkwardness.
Oh, when it was awkward. Yeah, okay. When the person didn't quite know how to have these return to work conversations, or whether it was didn't know the process, wasn't clear.
More awkward with the staff returning. About to what extent to talk about.
Okay, so how much are you willing to share on what you were injured and what do we bring up and what don't we bring up? Really cool. Yeah. So there's lots of different areas that can influence whether something goes really well or something doesn't. And really, most of the time, if you have psychological safety, so if you have a team where someone's returning to, where they feel that they can speak up, they feel like they can be heard and listened to, that any concerns they have are really taken, into account, and they don't feel embarrassment or awkwardness or humiliation because you've had those conversations and you've had the clarity around what the process is and what we're allowed to share and what not. Then you have this sense of psychological safety. And what we know as well is that psychological safety is actually correlated with a lack of the person feeling loneliness. Now, there's a lot of study happening around this idea of loneliness more lately, because we're realising that it's such a human condition to need to be socially connected. We're social beings and we have social brains. And when we feel lonely, it actually is a huge cost to us. The effect of loneliness is extremely hurtful. So loneliness can increase depression, anxiety, a decrease in immunity, it can lead to heart disease. It can also lead to a bit of cognitive bias, right? So greater attention is paid to the negative things. Now, as humans, we tend to focus on the negative anyway, because that's meant to keep us safer. But yeah, feeling and experiencing loneliness can really exacerbate that negativity as well. So we don't really want people to feel lonely. But you know what? Loneliness affects anybody and everybody. It can do. And there is a bit of a stigma around it. But I wanted to share with you, when I was 22, I've had this dream ever since I was little, to go to France and be French. Okay, I've got a bit of French background, and mum and my uncles always used to talk about, all their experiences in France with their dad, blah blah blah. So I was like, I really want that. I want to be French. So after uni, I just took myself off and lived in France, right? Sure. So I'm there, and because I'd studied psychology at uni, I had all these psychological tools. So in terms of my mental health, I was doing things that was, really great for my mental health. And I was a bit of a sports fiend as well, so I had all these sort of, health, dietary and exercise. I was ticking all the goals when it came to food, exercise, mental health sort of stuff. And yet, I distinctly remember there was one morning where I was lying in bed before I got up for the day, and I thought, if I lie in bed for just a little bit longer, then I don't have to have as much day. And that shocked me, because that's not who I am. That's not the type of thing I say in the mornings. And I thought, my goodness, what is going on here? And we've got a bit of a history of depression in family, so I kind of was like, I think that's really depressive thoughts, right? And so I thought, something needs to change, I need to do something. And I realised that I was feeling really lonely. Okay, I was living in this country where I really couldn't speak the language very well, despite my youth and my idea of self-inflated confidence around my language. I really wasn't speaking it very well, and I just didn't have a community. I was feeling really lonely. Now, loneliness is a biological condition. It's like thirst or hunger. It is your body saying, hey, you need to connect, because we're social beings. So you actually need to go and connect with someone. So luckily I had that little bit of an insight, and I did actually book my return ticket home. But before I went home, I joined Alliance Française and I started to learn the language. And there I met a Norwegian girl who had a French boyfriend, and I was able to just connect with his friends and kind of basically just sidle up to all their parties, and I really felt like I was starting to become like part of the community, part of a friendship group, and my experience shifted and changed, and I was like, this is great, and it was because I felt connected and I felt I belonged a little bit more. Unfortunately, I had booked my ticket home, so I did end up going home, but I did start to feel more connected, and it is really powerful to listen to that idea of loneliness. And why we need to be aware of that is because when somebody starts to feel that loneliness, it's much harder to get them back in and feel like they belong once they start feeling that loneliness. So we want to intervene earlier and prevent them from feeling lonely in the first place, okay? Because it really does affect their ability to get back to health. So really important to distinguish the difference between isolation and loneliness. So if somebody is at home injured, they can feel isolated because they are isolated physically. But loneliness, if someone is coming back to work on limited work or maybe even in full capacity, if they do not feel they belong in the team, and so it's perceptual, right? There's a gap, there's a perception gap between what they expect to feel and what they are actually experiencing, and that is loneliness, and that's where you can have those effects. So it's easy to think, oh, they're back in the team, they're back at work, they're right. They may not be. It's their perception, and it's that gap of their perception. And to make it all nuanced, even more nuanced, humans are great. Working with humans is so much fun. So you have to realise that some people have a lower tolerance for loneliness than others as well. So you need to know your people and what makes them tick. And also, really, we need to know that it's emotional contagion, so loneliness spreads. Okay, so if there's one person in your team who is feeling like that, it's a possibility that it can spread out to the rest of the team as well. So it's something to get onto. So what do we need to do? We need to build on psychological safety as a buffer for those sorts of feelings of loneliness. And this is a really great formula by Amy Edmondson and Connie Noonan-Hadley. They've said that if you provide these things, then you can create a psychologically safe environment. So a rationale. The person has to believe, like, why should I speak up or share my concerns with my leader? Why should I make it known that I'm not comfortable with this, or the stairs in the workplace is freaking me out, and or there's a certain person who I don't really want to return to work with. Why should I? You need to help them understand the rationale for them to speak up, and it's for the good of them and it's for the good of the team as well. And then you also need to create that opportunity, because it's all very well and good to say, you know what, you need to speak up for the good of you, good of the team, and then provide no opportunity whatsoever. Okay, there's no check-ins, or there's no phone calls, or there's no forum for them to actually speak up. So that opportunity is really vital. And then, of course, the reinforcement. So if they do, if you are in a check-in and they do say something, you don't just kind of go, oh, here they go speaking up again. Like, that's negative reinforcement. You want positive reinforcement, and you want to triple it. You want to be like, this is great that you've asked. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. I love that you're engaged in this and you're doing this. So really just reinforcing that. So that's a nice little formula to help increase psychological safety.